Good morning. Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker and distinguished guests, and particularly to Representative Draper for this invitation today. It is a deep honor and delight to be here with you all this morning. So, right after college, I was a part of something called the Georgia Cracker Crumble. It was a fundraiser event that was held for many years by the Georgia Press Association. And I got to sing and act and portray some very prominent Georgia figures in little skits. And some of y'all might remember that event. I don't believe it's held any longer, but there were many legislators and other leaders that attended this fundraising event. So I feel somewhat at home in a room just like this one with you or perhaps some of your colleagues. We might recognize each other from those days, perhaps, but probably not. I got cuter since then. As I was preparing for this moment, I remembered the little rhyme that my grandmother taught me in the little Methodist church in New Bern, Georgia, where they lived. The little rhyme went like this. You probably know it. This is the church, this is the steeple. Open the doors and see all the people. Now, I learned this when I was very young. I feel like it was deeply embedded in my heart. And I bring this up because I have come to claim that last phrase, open the doors and see all the people, as a motto for my ministry and as a framework for my practice as a pastor. See all the people. I have tried in my years of ministry to see the people in front of me as people, as human beings, whether they were legislators or governors, whether they were bishops or they were atheists, whether they were unhoused or hospitalized, or in line to be canonized. I have tried to see the people in front of me as human beings, worthy of being seen as fully human. So I am delighted to see and be invited by Representative Draper, who is a neighbor of ours. She lives right around the corner from my family in Atlanta. But before I lived in Atlanta, we lived across the street from Representative Dempsey in Rome. And so we have been neighbors too. How are Lynn and the grandbabies, Katie? And my family is from the very corner of Morgan County, where my parents now live in our family farmhouse. I've spent time with other family members in Metter and in Dahlonega, and I lived for a time in Oxford and in Polk County, and all of these places across our wonderful state. I have seen so many people. As different as we were all loved by God. And all of us are fully human, deserving of the things that we need to thrive. I want you to know that I see you as fully human. I want to invite you to join me in what we call, in my tradition, a spiritual discipline. And this discipline is to try to see all the people as we are, not as we might imagine us to be. See, I know that the labels that we put on other people, even the roles that we step into, can in some ways be dehumanizing. As a pastor, I can be seen as superhuman or super holy. Y'all, I love Jesus, but I cuss a little bit sometimes. And as lawmakers, I can imagine people see you in ways that look right past who you really are. The nature of our contentious political and social life means that we see the little letter after people's names, or we see skin color, or we see a rainbow pin, or a team jersey, or what kind of truck they're driving, and we begin to make assumptions about people, assumptions that can even in tiny ways cause us to begin to see those other folks as slightly less human than we are. In my Christian tradition, we remember that when Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment was, he said, and this is a paraphrase from Matthew 22, the first thing is you should love the Lord your God with all of who you are, and the second is right there with it. You must love your neighbor as yourself. Y'all, it's very hard to love your neighbor if you don't really see your neighbor. To see your neighbor not as an opponent or a target, or even as an opportunity, but to see them for their humanity, made and beloved by the divine. Y'all, I don't know all of your stories. I would love to hear them if we ever get a chance to share them with each other. But I do know that we all come from all over this great, diverse, and creative and boisterous state. And I would invite all of us to see more of the people of Georgia as we are, not as we imagine us to be. I'd love to go on a walk on the Beltline with you sometime here in Atlanta, or to ride around with you in your community if we ever get a chance, to see more about how the people of Georgia are in 2024. Surveys and polls and town hall meetings can only show you so much. Sometimes you need to do what's called a windshield survey. You need to get in a car and drive around, or get out and walk around and see and listen and notice how things are on the ground. Churches are notoriously bad about this because we often do our work in church buildings. And so I am reminded to open the doors and see all the people. I'm sure that legislators never, ever get stuck in offices or meetings more than you would like. How can you open the doors and see all the people? All the people. Because while some of us are just fine, some of us are scared, angry, and feel more and more hopeless, more and more disconnected from solutions to the stuck places of our lives. It is hard out here, y'all. And if you don't know that, let me take you on a tour just down the street. And y'all, I know and I trust and I see that it is hard in here too. Maybe you are scared, or you are angry, or you feel hopeless. It doesn't hurt to admit this. As author Bell Hooks said, learning how to face our fears is one way that we embrace love. So maybe you are resolved to embrace love and to face the work in front of you. But however you show up here today, you are not alone. You have been sent here by the people of Georgia for a purpose, to work for a better Georgia for all the people, inclusive of our economic status, our educational attainments, our gender, our race, our sexuality, our religion, our age, our backgrounds. Saint Irenaeus of Lyons is attributed with saying, "The glory of God is human beings fully alive." And so I invite you to see your work here as holy work, to bring delight to the divine by helping your neighbors find full, whole, real, happy life. May your work here today for the rest of your time in this house be to love your neighbors and to help them become fully alive, healthy, whole, and free. Friends, open the doors. See all the people, and love your neighbors as you love yourselves. Even Jesus said that all the law and the prophets depend on this. Friends, will you pray with me? And let's stand. Friends, let's take a deep breath together. O God of many names, everlasting and eternal one, we give you thanks for this day that you have made and for this world that you have made. God, in this world, beautiful and terrible things can and do happen. Help us to not be afraid. We give you thanks for the mystery of our making, how you have made each of us uniquely and wonderfully, and how you have brought all of us to this moment here together. O eternal and holy one, work in all of us, in our minds and our hearts and our souls and our bodies. Work through us and in spite of us, so that our great state may be ever more moderate, wise, and just through our actions and choices. God, help us to love our neighbors, all of our neighbors, all of our neighbors. God, help us to love ourselves, which sometimes, God, is the hardest thing. God, help us to love our enemies. God, empower our mercy, open our doors, expand our minds, And God, break our hearts for all the people who are hurting and suffering, lonely and afraid. Living One, I close with these ancient words and ask that they might be an invitation for all of us. God, be in our eyes and in our looking. God, be in our mouths and in our speaking. God, be in our hearts and in our thinking. God, be in our head and in our understanding. God, be at our end and at our departing. Amen. Friends, I would invite you to join with us as we pledge allegiance to the flag.